During the Mortal Kombat 1 beta, pretty much everyone agreed that Kitana was the weakest character. Not only was her combo damage very low compared to other fighters, but on top of that, she didn't have any mix-ups either. However, thankfully her zoning, counter-zoning, and whiff punish game was fairly decent. And now that Mortal Kombat 1 has fully released, we have access to way more cameo fighters that can help make Kitana decent. So here's the million-dollar question. Does Kitana still suck in Mortal Kombat 1? Is she terrific or terrible? Let's hop into training mode and find out. If you enjoyed this series or simply love Kitana, please leave a like down below, and without any further ado, let's get started. First up, we have the special moves, and one cool thing about Kitana is she can aim a lot of her special moves. There's close versions, far versions, and even very far versions in some situations. But here we go. First up, we have Fan Toss. Pretty decent projectile, hits high, the opponent can duck under it, however, the meter burn version hits mid. Now, the downside is it's really slow. Like seriously, you have to combo into this thing, it's never going to hit anybody raw, and to make matters worse, it hits at specific locations, so it's really easy to miss. If your opponent's moving around, dashing, and jumping, this move is pretty much never going to catch them, so once again, it's more for rare combo extensions. But honestly, it's not even very good for that. Kitana is one of those weird characters who almost never wants to spend meter. However, as mentioned earlier, you can aim this thing. There's a close version and a far version if you hold directions on the D-pad, and then the regular fan toss can be done in the air. However, annoyingly enough, it misses in a lot of situations. Like, the angle is just not good. And then for the final nail in the coffin, it doesn't even juggle airborne opponents, so if I catch Reptile with this, he doesn't even stay suspended like in the older games, which really sucks. Or to put things simply, this projectile is lacking a bit, in my opinion. It's great as a regular projectile to just kind of control space in the air and on the ground, but outside of that, it doesn't do very much, despite having all these variations that do different things. For me personally, the only time I use this fan during combos is in situations like this, where I'm already airborne and still want to be able to use my fan lift later on during the combo. Alright, time for the next move, a Fan NATO. This attack is actually very useful and super versatile. If done on the ground, this can be a fantastic way to extend combos in most situations, especially if your cameo character isn't available. However, if your cameo character is available, I recommend doing something else first and then juggling them into the Fan NATO and then ending the combo with an air string that does really good damage. Look at that, 380. We're escaping a Dinio with this one, boys. Yeah, Fan NATO is great for extending combos and can even be done in the air in situations like this or situations like this, right? It's really good for comboing. And then finally, this move can also be used to zone in a weird way because it controls airspace. There's a close version, far version, and a regular version. And then to make things even crazier, it hits behind you. Look at that. It goes behind Kitana, so sometimes when playing online, I catch teleports with this thing. It's not intentional, but it can happen. Next up, we have Princess Pirouette. So this move is great for ending combos in chunky damage, or with certain cameos, it can actually extend combos for some chunky damage. And finally, this is Kitana's armor attack, so if the opponent is constantly pressuring you or going for 50-50s on wake up, then get them off you with this move. And also don't forget, even the meter burn version can extend combos for some decent damage. Overall, this move is really good. Its only sin is being very unsafe on block, but that's common with most wake up attacks. Next up, we have Square Wave. This move is super interesting in this game. Not the regular version, it's just high damaging, hits high, the opponent could duck under it, and it's kind of a weird anti-air at certain ranges. It could be good for that. However, the meter burn version is where it's at, because you can actually cancel it into a second special move, and it can be any special move, by the way, as long as that special move can be done in the air. Or in other words, you can even do stuff like this. That's a full combo with the right cameo. It can be very useful and versatile. But I digress. Next up, it's time for Fancy Flick. This move is your main counter zoning tool, and that's because Kitana gets so low to the ground. She can actually duck under most projectiles while throwing her own. And just like Fan NATO, she can aim this thing. There's a close version and a far version. And keep in mind that the entire time it's out, the opponent can be hit, which means it controls airspace pretty well. And funny enough, because it starts behind you, sometimes it can catch people teleporting. It's never gonna happen on purpose, but trust me, eventually it will happen if you play this character long enough. But then we have the meter version, which launches the opponent if it lands, which could be really cool in theory, but once again, it's pretty slow on startup, and even though it can counter zone to an extent, it's usually not going to land. However, in the event that it does land, you could summon a cameo, run in, and get a combo going. It's not going to do a ton of damage, but it could happen. And then outside of that, you theoretically could combo into this thing if you just want slightly more damage, but it's not going to be very much. I recommend not spending meter on this move most of the time. But finally, it's time for Wind Bomb. This special move is so ridiculously situated situational. It really feels like NetherRealm was scared of making this move too powerful by accident, and as a result, it's severely limited. For starters, it's not even a mix-up, it hits mid instead of low, which is what it should hit. And then on top of that, it won't extend combos unless the opponent is really close to the ground. Look at that, I knocked Reptile right into it and nothing happened, because he has to be really close to the ground. Now that being said, with the right cameo, you actually can summon this trap mid-combo and then knock the opponent into it to keep things going, and the damage could be kinda cool, like 42-43%, right? But once again, you need the right cameo, somebody who can freeze the opponent in place, like Frost or Sub-Zero, Cyrax, somebody who holds them still. Outside of that, this move is not for comboing into. Instead, it's for controlling space, kinda like a landmine, or you can actually force the opponent to block it, and then you're plus. That works great in the corner, for example. And that's actually it for the special moves, which means it's time for the Fatal Blow. Kitana's Fatal Blow is really specific. For starters, it's quite slow. This is her most damaging string, and look, it does not combo into Fatal Blow. And the same is true for this combo right here. Really good damage for a starter and does not combo into Fatal Blow. So be careful, it's a bit slower than it looks, and on top of that, the hitbox is really specific and can miss in a lot of situations. And to make matters worse, in my experience, most of Kitana's best combos actually end in the air, and you can't do this Fatal Blow in the air, so that's the issue. At the end of any long combo, this thing can drop, so just be careful, spend time in training mode, and learn what works. But alright, it's finally time for the attack strings. First up, we have Rising Up. This knocks the opponent into the air and cannot be special cancelled, but thankfully certain cameos can keep the combo going for you. Next up, we have Wind Damage, and I do not remember this move from the beta. Maybe it was there, maybe it wasn't, but I don't remember it. Thankfully, it launches the opponent, which means if you time it correctly, you get a full combo. And then on top of that, I believe it's safe on block, which is cool, and because it hits low, you can use certain cameos for a mix-up. And look at that, it even combos on hit, which is fantastic. With certain characters like Lee Mei, I have to guess if the opponent's going to block, and if they get hit instead, the follow-up does not actually combo and they can punish me for free. Thankfully, that's not the case with Kitana. Next up, we have Who Runs the World. This move does not special cancel by itself, but thankfully, once again, you can cameo and keep the combo going, and get this. The string is actually +3 on block, which would be cool if I could reach the opponent at all. Like seriously, NetherRealm, why do you do this? Too many characters in your games are plus, but too far away to actually do anything. Why are you doing this to us? Anyway, next up we have Twisted Edenian, and I believe this was actually unsafe on block in the beta, which was ridiculous because there's no mix-ups, it's just mids, but thankfully now it's safe at -6. And also you can special cancel the second hit, which can lead to some decent damage, especially with the right cameo. You can do stuff like this, walk forward, then do the fan lift, and look at that, almost 38%. Pretty good stuff, and it's 12 frames, which is great for a mid. Next up, we have Step Off and the Comeback. The first two hits are actually pretty damaging and can be great for extending combos, but if you do the entire dial-in string, you can special cancel the second to last hit, and in most situations, that's the most damaging way to start your combos. But then we have Unbreakable. This string is interesting because it launches the opponent to extend combos with the right cameo, but you cannot special cancel the final hit, so overall it's not a very good option, if I'm being honest. Oh baby, but then we have Heavy is the Crown. This string, alright, this string right here is one of the best things about Kitana. The first hit has really good range, and that makes it a fantastic whiff punish, but it gets better because this string does really good damage at 116 and can be special canceled. Yeah, this is one of your best ways to start combos. Then for the cherry on top, it's actually safe on block, which is kinda crazy. This string has great range, great damage, and is safe on block. That's pretty awesome. Next up, we have Finishing Touch and Booty Bump. Finishing Touch has a sneaky low in there, which means you could mix it up with an overhead cameo, and look at that. On hit, it combos, and on block, it's a mix-up. That is the perfect situation. And guess what? It's actually safe on block at -7, which is pretty crazy. Booty Bump is not safe on block. It's actually really punishable, and you can't do the final hit on block, which is unfortunate. However, thankfully you can do stuff like this and start combos, so it's not all doom and gloom. Booty Bump does have its uses in some situations, because it hits low, and sometimes the opponent's just not looking out for that. Maybe they're really dumb and don't know that Kitana has 0 overheads. And then finally, last but certainly not least, we have Edenian Dance, one of my least favorite inputs in the game. Why is it circle forward X instead of forward circle XX? NetherRealm, what are you doing? I just hold forward the entire entire time, and that makes things so much easier. And what's cool about this string is you can actually special cancel it while in the air, or you can special cancel it once you land, and with the right cameo, you get a full combo. Check this out. Bop, bop, bop. Ooh, baby, almost 38%. And not to mention, this first hit has some pretty good range, and I think the entire string is actually safe on block at -4. Look at that. And it actually has a final hit that I never use. What's that like on block? Oh, it's an overhead, but it's -12. No, it's fully punishable. The only reason you would ever use this overhead is to scare the opponent into blocking high and then catch him with a low hitting cameo. And for an honorable mention, we have Kitana's sweep, one of the best sweeps in the entire game because its range is insane and Kitana stays where she is, which means she's really hard to hit while doing it. Alright, it's time for the air strings. Tailspin does crazy damage. Look at this, we're getting almost 22%. That's crazy. It's a really damaging string. The only downside is you can't special cancel the final hit. However, you could theoretically cameo, and look at that, we're getting 34% almost for just 2 strings. For almost all of my combos, I do fan lift and then dash forward if needed and do this same air string. The damage is super good and it almost never misses. Next up we have fan slam, which ground bounces the opponent and sounds really cool in theory, but the issue is it knocks them really far away, which means you pretty much need a cameo to keep the combo going. The only exception is if you have the opponent cornered. In that situation, you can actually do something like this and finish the combo in really cool style. And then finally we have flipping out. This air string also does really decent damage and is quick, so if the combo's been going on for a really long time and you're worried this string isn't going to fully land, then you're better off using flipping out because once again it hits really quickly and there's no way the opponent has time to drop out. Overall, Kitana is much better in the full version of the game than she was in the beta. However, even so, she is still quite lacking. She has no overheads for the opponent to fear, which means you need certain cameos like Scorpion or Goro, anybody who can hit overhead for a decent mix-up, unless you just want to be a whiff punished and anti-zoning character, because Kitana can be that too. She get low, shorty get low. If you want to make use of her trap, then I recommend cameos like Cyrax or Frost and Sub-Zero, because you can actually summon it mid-combo and keep things going, and I think the damage gets around 42% if you're good at it. The only real gripe I have with Kitana is that she has no reason to spend a meter most of the time. Outside of this wake up, I never spend bar, which on the one hand means I have combo breaker all the time. That's a silver lining. However, at the same time, I would appreciate if her meter burn attacks did more damage or had reduced combo scaling, something like that, because most of the time there's really no reason to do them. But let me know your thoughts on Kitana in the comment section down below. Do you think she's great? Do you think she's terrible? Do you think she's average? Grab that keyboard and make your voices heard. And then while you're down there, leave a like if you enjoyed the video. It really does help my channel out a ton. And then finish that combo by subscribing and ringing that bell so you never miss any future videos. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdog.